Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Look at the soil, look at the plantation you have, look at the background. Thanks for inviting me over.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate it. Last year you gave away my sorrow though, but this year you made sure to call me, but I really appreciate it. With me today is Florence. We have worked together at the University of West Indies Open Campus for several years. We have had a wonderful relationship. We have presented together, we have ate together, and as a matter of fact, I'm sure you went to the same teachers college I went to, if I'm correct, right?
I worked there.
You worked
but
there.
My husband attended.
And your husband attended?
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's where you met your wonderful husband, right?
Yes, I met him there when he became a lecturer as well.
Woo! Whoa, that's some sort of connection. I'm really delighted regarding that. All right, so it's going to be a very flexible interview where I know you have so much to offer regarding online teaching and learning. You have been a part of the University Open Campus for several years. You have developed training programs. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I am Jamaican. That's the first part, and I have been in teaching for over 30 years now. I started teaching at 19.
Wow.
And I have never looked back. This is what I have been doing, and I became a trainer of trainers in 2006 when I went to the Bethlehem Irvine College as a lecturer to work there.
So you have been doing training from the longest while, and you have brought over that training to the Open Campus.
Yes. I came to the Open Campus having done training before, both for the Ministry of Education in Jamaica and the Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning, and that was a USAID project within Jamaica, as well as the Expanding Horizons project, which looked at basic literacy development back in Jamaica.
Good. I know we share a special mentor. As I was driving to visit you today, I thought about her, Dr. Smythe. Because she was a special person. Tell me a little bit about Dr. Smythe and your relationship with her.
Well, I met Dr. Smythe when I applied to the University of the West Indies to do literacy as an area of specialization. And she has mentored me from that time. She always believed in diversity and including everyone in the process. And she was one who believed that what you know, you should impart to others. And that's something that she has left with me. And even in my own engagement with teachers and in teacher training and faculty development for online engagement, that is something that is at the core of what I do.
Splendid, because I just want to say for this interview that Dr. Smythe was one of the best teachers I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, pound for pound, she's in my top 3. Now, let us change this interview somewhat to a kind of different perspective, because I know that you have done a lot as it relates to online training and development, and I want to set the context as it relates to COVID. Now, COVID has created a lot of kind of or need for greater diversity in online teaching and learning. What has COVID really done to the context of online education?
Alright, so when you think about online education was lagging behind traditional teaching and learning before COVID-19. So we could say COVID has acted as an accelerator for online learning, where everyone has had to go online due to COVID-19. The social distancing, the masking, the opportunities to stay outside of crowds and so on, that has given that big push to online learning. So in the context of COVID-19, I'm seeing online learning as a quote-unquote savior, because it is what has allowed us to have that continuity for education at all levels of education.
Good. And how prepared, because it's not a trick question, how prepared do you think institutions were when this crisis arrived?
A lot of institutions were very, very unprepared. A lot of institutions do not think about business continuity and do not have a disaster risk management plan.
You know, I want to stop you there because I realized that the University of the West Indies Open campus practically had an emergency response to COVID.
Yes, we had to institute an emergency response to support other institutions within the region who were not as prepared. So the UWI Open Campus, because of the placement, we are in a distributed environment and we're affected by hurricanes every season. So because of that, we have had to document what we would do in case of an emergency, a natural disaster. Those same principles were applied to COVID-19, where you knew what you would do if students were unable to connect. You knew what you would do if students were unable to hand assignments in on time and those kinds of things. So those practical examples, we were able to offer training to other institutions to share our best practices in that way.
Very impressive, because when I realized what you guys were doing, I said to myself, wow, you practically had that response to the T and were able to influence other institutions across the Caribbean. You know, as we view the crisis and we move on to what we have learned in relation to COVID, because we're still learning, what do you think are some lessons coming out of this crisis for institutions in general?
Institutions, when we talk about institutions, we are basically thinking about institutions of teaching and learning. At different levels, it's going to be different things. Mm-hmm. So at the lower levels, primary, secondary, and so on, there must be a homeschool partnership.
Yes.
The parents need to understand where their children are in the curriculum. They need to understand what the curriculum is expecting the children to know, and have that handle on what children need to know so that they can support the children while at home. So that's up to the secondary level. At the tertiary level, teachers need to understand the technology, not just that one piece of PowerPoint that you are going to project in front of a classroom, but they must be able to use content management systems and learning management systems. They must understand access and accessibility, because those things are going to be very important to keeping education alive in this time of crisis.
That is so spot on, because I think as we move online, sometimes teachers in general might not know what it requires, but I think online learning and teaching itself requires a different mindset as it relates to getting students having the opportunity as everyone should have. Another question that comes to mind is the area of professional development. Many institutions now are running after professional development programs, creating their own programs, or trying to really do a patchwork. I want to ask you, as an expert in online training and development for faculty members and also professionals, what are the key components that you think any faculty development program in relation to online teaching and learning must have?
All right, so I know that you have talked about an online persona before coming to this interview. So we are looking at the community of inquiry model, mm-hmm. and we are going to look at that model in detail. The presence. So the online presence is going to be very important. The social presence, you have to know who are you online. How do the students see you? How do you share what you know? So the teaching presence, having a structure, so having a schedule, having content that is accessible for students, knowing how to assess what you are teaching, ensuring that the students are connecting not just with the content but with each other, because learning is social. So it's that understanding that is going to be important.
The social connection I've always spoken about is so important, and so many times it's often ignored. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that you said that. You know, what do you see as possible barriers to designing some of the components that you mentioned earlier?
All right, we are going to be looking at this. I want to respond to this question both from the perspective of the Caribbean and from the perspective of the United States.
Good.
Right? So, in the Caribbean, one barrier is going to be access. We think about the topography of the islands in the Caribbean. The internet service providers are not, there is no equity of access to internet in the Caribbean. So you are looking at children who live on a mountain, for example, would not have the same access to the internet as a child who lives in a suburban or urban area. That is going to be a barrier for equity.
Yes.
Another barrier is going to, and that's another access barrier too, it's going to be who has what. So I see you with a tablet in your hand.
Yeah.
Many parents and schools would not have tablets and computers. Some families have a single cell phone for, let us say, a family of 5. 3 are children who are going to school. They are in different classes. They have to access their classrooms via the technology. That's going to be a barrier. Another barrier is going to be for teachers who do not have an understanding that it is not stand and deliver anymore.
Yes,
that chalk and talk option is obsolete. So while you have lectures, you have to have mini lectures. You have to have opportunities for engagement and for active learning. Within the United States, we come back to the parent-school partnership.
Yes.
A lot of parents use the school system as a daycare facility where the children, it's like a sausage factory. You put the child in at one end and you get a sausage out at the other end. You get an educated child. So that parent-school partnership is going to be important. We look at now how we are looking at our environment. Just recently on the news, a little boy in level 2 was suspended from school because he had a BB gun in his room.
Yes.
School is at home.
Exactly.
So there is that security measure. The teachers have to think about what it is that they are going to do to mediate behaviors online.
Yes, I was thinking about the same thing because I'm saying this sort of behavior management now is not in the physical classroom, but actually online. Good point.
So we are going to have to look at how conferences do it.
Yes.
They have an area where everybody comes. Schools will have to start to adopt that same principle.
I agree.
All the children come in at this place. So that's the principal's office. And they then get dispersed to their classes. If we can do that in education, then behavior modification might work.
Yes, I think that is one of the biggest things regarding the apparel that parents are wearing. Some are coming up with their not clothed properly, and that creates a problem. So we have to go back in time and go back to the tradition of making sure that we have the code of conduct as it relates to your dress in the Zoom sessions and so forth.
Right, because right now parents are at school.
Exactly.
So the same code of conduct that applies to the child is applying to the to the parent.
That is solid.
So in my 1-bedroom apartment, for example, my bed has to be made up in a particular way. I have to get out of my nightgown because the child is right there in that same room.
You're creating the atmosphere for
learning.
Yes,
right.
Yes. Positive. I want you to kind of move on, and I'm happy that we're here sharing some solid points. And as you look at the modality of online learning and the significance it has been given within our context today, where do you see online learning in another 5 years?
Well, right now, everybody is recognizing that online learning is more and more becoming mainstream. So online learning has outpaced traditional mode, and I think it will continue to keep in step with or outpace the traditional mode, especially because of what is happening here in this crisis situation. Schools have to adapt to what they do. Learning management systems are going to be very important going forward. Content management systems are going to be important, and teachers have to learn to become more capable. Their proficiencies with technology has to change. So they have to be aware of what is happening and to get on board with the technology, with the changes in technology. Not to add every bell and whistle to classrooms, but to ensure that children learn that they are using multimedia approaches that children can learn with. So not just a text-based model, but adding different aspects of multimedia like audio and video and animation so that they can capture and hold students'
a balance
attention.
between technology and pedagogy.
Yes.
My final question to you before this
The weather changes.
is what guidance would you give to a teacher or professor starting their journey into the world of online teaching and learning?
I would say think about Carol Dweck's growth mindset.
Yes, I
And
love
come
that
in,
one. Yes.
come in with an open mind. Don't be flexible. That's the first thing. Think that you are here to learn. You're not just here to teach. Because the online learning model allows so many opportunities for learning. I would want to also say to that teacher coming in for the first time that learn all you can.
Sorry.
Learn all you can and understand what you know can be applied in the online environment. Some things that you use face to face can still be applied. It's how you tweak it and change it to make it work for learners. That's
Well,
gonna be
that were you gave some solid points. I'm really delighted that we were able to do this interview in the your backyard, facing the golf course, the Sorrel section there. You have so many things. Thanks to your husband Andrew for helping us out with the shoot, and of course it is a pleasure. You have given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure others too, especially in the context of the Caribbean. As a Jamaican to a Jamaican, I want to say thanks for the contribution, because at this point we are in a crisis in Jamaica as it relates to online teaching and learning, and in the United States we are also in a crisis. So I think this interview is very relevant to our context, and thanks for having me and taking the time out to do this interview. Thanks again.
Thank you so
All
much
right,
for having
thanks.
us as well.
And please remember to share this video as you view it, because I think it's relevant to other contexts, and of course we're in the business of sharing knowledge and sharing ideas. Thanks.